Hey, welcome back. Today, let's talk about SynthWave drums.
Part 2.
All right, so let's keep looking at these basic layers before we move on to the processing aspect of it. So let's go to this cymbal track that I mentioned. I do have some EQ on this to sort of remove lows and bring out highs, because this layer is more meant as ambience. It's not meant to be punchy at all, really, or to add a huge amount to the track. So let's try removing this. So clearly ambience. We really only got a few elements in here. We've got a hat and a clap. And it's just a 1-bar loop. It's pretty simple. I probably just played around with it until I found something that worked. There's a reverb here. That's just to spread out the sound a little bit. And with the individual sounds, you can bet that I did, ADSR again. Again, ADSR is my friend. Get the parts of the sounds that I do want. Remove some of the parts of the sounds that I don't. And then there's a transient tool. I am actually just adding a little bit of attack to this, but it's just probably for the blend. It's interesting how when you combine them both, it almost sounds like there's something more going on than there is. So this is just pretty dry, and it's got hi-hats. And then with this, we only have this. But when you combine together, it almost sounds like there's a fluttering in the actual claps and in the rim shots. So now let's go look at some of the processing that I did. First, starting on the Maschine bus here, there's a Maschine bus. There's a gate. And what I'm actually doing here is tightening up the sound. It's actually a very important aspect of what's happening here. So we have a similar to a compressor type thing here, where we open the gate with every hit, and the release is tight, but not so tight that it's very obvious what's happening. And then the beauty of this Reaper gate is that you can add in some dry signal with the wet. So that's key to making it sound more natural. If I don't have that dry signal in there, it'll sound pretty unnatural. You can definitely hear the effect more. That's not necessarily bad. So it's all these small effects adding together. In this case, I clearly was trying different things, and then I sort of settled on a simpler setup than I had originally thought. This was copied over to the bus, and I thought I might use some of these things, but I didn't. We could technically just hear what they sounded like, but I don't think that's constructive to the final track since I did not end up with them. So let's go to this next effect here. We have the gate, obviously. Let's turn off the Decimort. Okay, that's the primary heavy lifting here. I do love this plugin. So this is very clinical sounding, for lack of a better way to put it. That's where the majority of the grit and the push comes from. although there's another couple of spots where there's a bit more. Now, part of that here is that we have a low pass, so let's try turning that off. So the grit's still there, but the low pass is actually limiting the maximum brightness of the sound that I would be able to get when I am mixing together and when I am shaping the high and low pass in the other plugin. So one thing we could do is let's turn off that main other plugin here, this MiniVerb. So again, it's lowering the brightness a second time. But really, I like to take the brightness and the low end on a kind of journey throughout the track. You know, I don't want them staying the same. That's just a stylistic thing. That's just a thing I like to do. There's no particular reason. But this guy is doing a lot of drive. There's a specific frequency we're at here for the resample, so it affects the sound. And getting this exactly where you want it is key. Like, I'll shape it a bit. Watch. Sounds quite different, obviously. Somewhere around there. And it affects what the jitter affects. So the jitter is a huge effect on this that I really enjoy. There's nothing like it in any other plugin that I have. So we can see that it's at about 1/3 of the way up. It's obviously punchier and tighter now, but it's less odd sounding in the way that I want it to be. It's kind of stupid, huh? These filters just add high end or clean things up a little bit. I'm not exactly sure how they work, but if they sound good and I turn the knob, I use them. Not a huge difference there. Again, just some brightness. And this resolution is the bit rate. If you go down too much, you get a lot of noise. So because you have less dynamic range to work with before the noise floor. That's what you need bits for in digital, is to have a bigger spread between the quietest and loudest possible sounds. So if we turn this way down, kind of fun actually, but so let's compare that to the 14 bits where I had it. Definitely the noise drops, but there's a certain graininess that comes with lowering the bit rate that is really nice. The dithering is set to max. Okay, that's no bit rate reduction. It's just a bit more compressed and a bit more lo-fi, which is maybe what we're going for. Let's try the dithering knob here. No, I'm not hearing a heck of a lot of difference there, and I'm wondering if it's because we're still using a reasonably high bit rate. And as a result of continuing to use a reasonably high bit rate, we're not doing much dithering because we're not lowering the bit rate very much. But that plugin is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Just have like a general EQ here that is just probably tightening things up and opening things up in the mid-range a little. There might be a little too much mid-range in the sound. A little too much thunky thunk sort of stuff at 150, and a little too much like kind of telephonic frequencies in the mid-range. Tighter, better. Small change, but it's a big change. Oh, Vulf Compressor's gonna get angry. when I'm recording and streaming it at the same time. This is providing a lot of movement and pump. Oh, geez. That's huge. It's bouncing a lot and it's creating excitement. As the plugin, you can see the graph on the plugin, and as it bounces up and down, it creates excitement. And the wow control also kind of has a pitch warble to it, so it adds a little bit of a nostalgia feel. And the crunch over on the right, it adds some harmonics and stuff, and they sound really, really good on this. The attack and release are really important to where you end up with the sound. So let's try putting it back on. This is actually a valid sound without it. It just sort of swells back up the ends of those claps. So let's try showing you what the crunch does. I'll turn that all the way off. It's a lot less PHAT, fat, and yeah. There's a certain amount of saturation that sounds really good there. The lo-fi, I think, affects that too. Again, you can have too much of a good thing here, so it's about finding the balance. It's about finding a balance. And it's 80% wet, but not 100%. Let's see what 100% wet would have sounded like. It's ducking just a bit much for me. You feel that the little hole in the sound? Some people like that. Not my thing. And let's show dry again. Yeah. This is doing a lot. So that's Vulf Compressor. We can try a couple different attack and release times just to see where I ended up here. For the attack, I'm really listening for that leading edge of the sound. A much longer, thicker leading edge, like it's thick and it's going to take up more space in the track. It's tighter now. And the release affects the pumping sound. So like how much it comes up and how quickly the sound returns after each hit. See, now the sound's not really returning much after each hit, so you're not really getting a lot of the background swelling up, a lot of the ambience. Yeah, there's a balance there. You can pretty much, using the release, both balance the way it feels in the movement, and you can also balance how much of the background sound you want. So if you wanted more of the background sound, it's really swamping in it now. And let's look at the last one, Tremolator. I'm actually not recalling exactly what I was doing here. Oh, just a typical quarter note, kind of like pump and swell. And you'll notice from the shape of my curves, you can move the curve up here using the feel. And so I move it behind the beat, because if I put it right on the beat, it has eaten the kick. The kick is kind of gone, right? Because on every quarter note, it's right low, like the volume is at its lowest point, right where the kick will hit. So opening this up, now it's ducking right after the kick hit, and so you get that meat of the initial hit. So let's try bypassing this. This is really, there's no analog kind of effects on here. There's no distortion happening from this plugin. This is really just for the ducking and nothing else. And it's not at 100% depth, which would basically be like wet dry. So here's without. Oh yeah, you can feel that it jumps up and down a little more now, right? So that's like all the effects on the master bus. So if I was to turn off the effects on the master bus, it's not going to sound right at all. So the samples for the 707, that's fairly accurate to what a 707 sounds like. It's quite dry and clean and like pristine. So with SynthWave, you gotta dirty it up. You gotta dirty the crap out of it. And then as I mentioned, the last couple things here, they're on the drum bus, which I'm shaping. So I'm shaping the high frequency content, the low frequency content, and everything else on this plugin is turned off. So I'm really only using it as a filter. So if we go over to like a spot where it's aggressively filtered, like here, the key is to balance the lows and the highs. So you've still got a punchy drum sound, but it's not bloated on the lows or the highs. And I often spend quite a bit of time figuring out the shape of these movements of the frequency response that are the most natural. Because if we rewind again and we put on something else like the bass, so there's more frequencies in the bass right now, but it's a way of featuring a different instrument. So the drums kind of fall into the back because they are filtered more and they don't have as much energy, right? When you take away the highs and the lows, you're lowering the overall volume as well because you're removing a certain amount of the frequency content. And now they're kind of coming back together. That is the ARP Odyssey. That's to my left. And the drums are picking up. The ARP Odyssey is going through the Fairfield shallow water for some pitch warble to make it a bit more nostalgic. So that's what I wanted to show you on this track. And I wanted to do a compare and contrast to another recent track, Y2 Cake, which has quite a different setup. I wanted to show you how I adapted to come up with a good sound for that track. I hope there were some sweet and useful nuggets in there for you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell on the channel so you can see more videos like this. This is part of a longer series, so I'm sure there's more that I have to share that you might find really useful. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you again soon.